you're learning lots and want to continue to learn lots, so we're going to give you a Power Pack session today on meta programs. And some of you are saying, what the heck is a meta program? Well, meta program is an unconscious filter or several unconscious filters that you use day in and day out to sort massive amounts of information and come up with certain conclusions, which then create certain actions and certain decisions. So it's a safety mechanism or a speed mechanism to take a lot of information and process it in a way that makes sense for you. Now, what's interesting is your meta programs are different than other people's meta programs. So sometimes this can cause a conflict. You'll have a prospective franchisee that's a pain in the tuchus, or at least you think he or she is, and others you just seem to get along famously with. And oftentimes it is due to how they are filtering and or processing day-to-day information. So last month we talked about two of the meta programs, the toward and away from strategy, which was over here, and the comfort zone, which was here. If you didn't get a moment to listen in on that webinar, it's stored on our website, zoracleprofiles.com, or send a note to Aubrey and she can help you get a recording link. Today, however, we're going to talk about three meta programs: the frame of reference sort, the relationship sort, and the decision-making sort. So how this works is you wake up day in and day out with about gazillion different questions you are asking the world. You're not conscious you're asking those questions, but those questions are being asked, like, how can I have fun today? Or what can I learn today? Or am I doing a good job? Or what do I have to do more deals? So you're constantly asking these questions, which create these meta programs and allow you to sort certain data. One of them is the frame of reference filter. And the question that typically is being asked is, how do I know when I've done a good job? So this could be coming up with, how do I know when the house is clean enough? How do I know I am managing my employees to the best of my ability? How do I know when I'm a good parent? How do I know when I'm a good spouse? So it's one form or another, a frame of reference question that you are asking yourself. And there are two primary ways that this question is answered or filtered, and your prospect is doing the same thing. Am I doing it right? Am I going through this due diligence process right? Am I gathering enough information? Am I looking at the right business? Did I make the right decisions? They're asking those questions every single day. And there's two ways they answer it. One is through an internal filter, and another is through an external filter. So those of us that filter using an internal process, those are individuals that don't particularly like critique. They don't want a lot of feedback. They don't want you as a franchise broker or franchise development guy or gal to give them a lot of feedback. They somehow just know. Right? They have a gut feeling. They have this kind of knowingness or confidence inside that says, I will know when I have found the right business. Or I know I am doing the right thing. I'm managing my people correctly. I'm parenting correctly. I'm doing things the way they're supposed to be. So the nice part about an internal sorter is they tend to be motivated even without a whole lot of feedback. But they tend to be inflexible. So if you have a sales process as a franchise development guy or as a broker, they may or may not be great at following whatever that system or process is that you have laid out for them. They know the right way to research a business, right? Or to determine if that's the right business for them. So the internal sorter not only does not like critique or feedback, oftentimes he or she may disregard evidence or information or advice. So they may be doing research on your business or several businesses that you may be showing them if you're a franchise broker, and all of a sudden an article comes out about that particular industry that gives it a slant that they hadn't seen before. They're likely going to ignore that information if they've already predetermined this is the right track that they're going on. So these are individuals that just know. They just know. In fact, they'll tell you, I'll have a gut feeling. And oftentimes they can pick up a phone, call various franchisees, talk to various franchisors, talk to their advisors, and it's not always listened to, that particular advice. The external, on the other hand, does the opposite. They need and want feedback and critique, and they enjoy having that feedback and critique. And they typically make decisions based on concrete fact. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of these two types? The internal sorter is able to stay motivated without any major praise or feedback from you or from anyone else. They're on a track, they're going to finish that track, they're going to get to an end result. It could be a yes, it could be a no, but either way, the spreadsheets, the P&Ls, the validation, all of that stuff is not as important as they know they are doing this process correctly. The disadvantage of the internal sorter, of course, is they will cancel out evidence and oftentimes ignore the wise counsel of you as a franchise broker, you as a franchise development guy, whether that's about certain real estate or location or financing or whatever it is. Oftentimes they will cancel it out if it is not in agreement with what they believe is right and best for them. They will even at times cancel out things that are in black and white, articles, P&L, spreadsheets, those kinds of things, and advisement from their attorneys and their accountants. Now, this isn't always a bad thing, right, if they absolutely know this is the right thing, but in the process of deciding to buy a franchise, we encourage our prospect to do his or her due diligence so they can make wise and informed decisions. The external sorter, some of the advantages for them, of course, is that they do make decisions based on this concrete evidence. It's not just about it feels good, it feels right, it kind of fits, but they're also paying attention to the feedback. When they make a call to a current franchisee, they listen with intent, they ask the questions, they jot it down, and then they weigh all of those things out. One of the challenges, of course, that the external sorter will have is if they get some negative feedback, which sometimes happens, right? Especially in quickly growing, emerging franchise systems, oftentimes there are validation issues, or there's an economic shift, or financing is harder to get. Things happen, right? This is just the way life is. And oftentimes, an extreme external sorter will go a completely different direction because of that. I'll give you an example of a client that a broker was working with, had moved this young man in his mid-30s through the process of looking at many great opportunities, narrowed it down to one. He was just about ready to write a check to get into this business when his father, who lived in the Midwest as well as the son, was at a donut shop. And the father was bragging about how his son was going to buy a business, and he was so proud of him. And the donut shop owner says to the father, says, well, why didn't you tell me your son wanted to buy a business? The donut shop is for sale. I want to retire. So the father went home, talked to the son. Hey, Joe is selling his donut shop. You really should do that. I mean, obviously it's a business that's been around for 40 years. You should do that. And all of a sudden, boom, the son stopped the process of buying the franchise and buys this donut shop in downtown, small town, mid-America. So this was an external sorter. The son was an external sorter, and he was sorting by the opinions of his father. Okay, so we have to know with an external sorter who those external people are that he or she are talking to and advising him. Is it his wife? Is it a pastor? Is it an attorney? Is it the Wall Street Journal? What is it that's giving him advice or giving him feedback where he can move down that track? And those of you that have been in this situation know with an external sorter, you want to include that uncle that's going to finance them. You want to include the husband or wife. And if unable to, you want to, at minimum, be asking that prospective franchisee, what does your wife think about this? Did you talk to your uncle about this? What about your CPA? Tell me what's going on. And as they give you feedback, you can manage the process with an external sorter. It's also vital with an external sorter that you give them solid information besides just your word that they can pack together that says all this information leads me to the right decision. Now with the internal sorter, because they have this knowingness, this overconfidence almost, you want to play to that and not barrage them with too much data, but enough that they can do their due diligence, but to respect and honor that there is no one like them and no one that can know what's right and best for them but themselves. And so you want to word things in such a way that you're going with their frame of reference instead of using your own or going counter it. Even if it seems odd and squirrely, trust me, you'll do more deals when you go with the flow instead of against the flow. So if they're external, use their external process. If they're internal, use internal process. Now, occasionally you're going to find people who are balanced, right? They're both internal and external. Doesn't happen often, but it happens. In that case, you want to offer them some words such as this. As you consider what you think and what others think, so you can see it's about that gut feeling, the part of you that knows what's right for you, but also a little bit of what others say. So you're going to balance that out. So you're considering both. If you're talking to an external, you might use words such as, consider what others in this situation or project or environment might think. What does your uncle think? What does your wife think? What does your financier think? What did the spreadsheets tell you? So we're giving them, let's look at those external things. If you are an internal sorter, you're going to find this very stressful to do. Like, why do they have to ask 10,000 people and read 10,000 articles? An internal sorter doesn't need that, but the external sorter will need a certain amount of information. And gals that are in the webinar today, you can relate to this, right? We try on an outfit, we're at Nordy's or Bloomingdale's, wherever we are, and we bring our best friend and we turn around in 15 different directions and we ask her. We even ask the sales lady, what do you think? Does this look great? And just that one word that says looks fabulous is a piece of external information that already validates what we need to hear and what we believe. So internal, if they're just internal sorters, things like, I can't convince you of anything, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here simply to offer you some opportunities or to show you my business so you can know. And once you take a look at it, my guess is you will know for sure if this is right for you or not. So use those words even as you're giving them data. Again, you're going to know what's right and best for you. I thought maybe you'd want to see this. I thought you might want to talk to so-and-so. But either way, I mean, obviously, you're going to know better than anybody. So you're still acknowledging this confidence that they have, but you're taking them down the road of some due diligence. The internal with external sort, as you check inside and you get that feeling, yes, this is right, or no, it's not quite right, I'm going to ask you to look at some additional evidence. I'm going to ask you to look at this and that, which may or may not validate what that gut is telling you. So let's look at the third sort that we are looking at today, which is the relationship filter or the relationship sort. So there are three chairs here, and quickly in your mind, you're making some assumptions about these chairs. They're alike, they're different, they're tall, they're skinny, they're green, they got dots on them. Each of you are processing these chairs in a different way. And so what this sort is looking at is, how are these similar or different? How is this business I am looking at similar or different than what my great uncle did, or what my best friend did, or that business down the street? Or how is it similar or different than experiences I've had as a business owner myself or watching other business owners? So this is going on unconsciously every single day. So when you're showing them a business, your business, if you're a franchisor or brokers, you're showing them 2 or 3 opportunities. They're either going to be sorting from how is this the same as, or how is this different than these other things that I've had in my life or observed in my life or I've read about. So the relationship sorter that sorts by sameness we call a matcher or a sameness sorter. They tend to notice things that are similar, or they notice the things that they have in common. So they would have looked at those 3 chairs and they would have said, it's 3 chairs. And they're all green and they have, yellow dots on them. They would notice all the things that are the same. Now, folks that are sameness sorters or matchers, as we call them, have a low tolerance for change, and they will do so very slowly. These are the folks that are your career business people. They have stayed in their employment, they've climbed that corporate ladder, and 15, 20 years later, maybe now they're ready to do something different. And usually it's something major. They're going to jump ship and do something different. This is the guy or gal who's lived in the same city for 15, 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden one day goes, yeah, I think I'll move to Cincinnati. They just do something completely different, but it takes a long time before they get to that place. The difference filter or the mismatcher is the guy or gal that notices how things are different. So they'll look at a group of 6 or 7 companies or 6 or 7 situations, and they will instantly notice those 1 or 2 or 3 little things that are completely different. Those of you that are sameness sorters won't even notice that little bitty difference. So they'll look at those 3 chairs and they'll say, those chairs are all different. 2 are facing to the left and 1 is facing to the right. In fact, the 1 is completely isolated and separate from the other 2. The other 2 looks like they're having a conversation, and the other 1 is ignoring the other 2, and they'll notice everything that is different. So these folks have a low tolerance for anything that is static or boring or the same. So they resist anything that is stable. They like change. They like revolutionary change. In fact, these are the guys or gals who are jumping from job to job every 1 or 2 years, oftentimes completely different and unrelated types of jobs, because they love that learning process. They love the change. They like doing something completely different. So now let's look at the sameness. The sameness individual, some of the advantages of that, of course, is when you're on the phone with them, which much of your work is on the phone, you're going to bond with them almost instantly. You're going to know that you went to the same university, that you married people with the same name, that you both have certain kinds of dogs, you both like to fish. You'll instantly notice everything that you do or have that is the same. So these are people that are very easy to build relationships with, or to at least have strong rapport. So they seem to see everything that's the same. One of the challenges with someone who filters by sameness is it's extremely stressful to go through change. And so leaving the safety of their employment and going into business ownership will take great finesse by both the franchise broker, if they're working with one, and the franchise development team. And we are going to show them every day that we're talking with them how going in the business is the same as much of what they had in the past. We're going to show them that this business will allow them to use the same core competencies that they use to manage that other team at ABC company that they worked at for 15 years. We're going to show them that this business that they're looking at has historically proven system. It is stable. It is the same. We're going to show them how things parallel and look exactly the same. They're going to still be working in teams. They're still going to be working in the territory just like they worked before. We're going to show them everything that's possibly the same, and this will allow them to feel safe and secure and make that leap to what's it's completely out of their comfort zone in many cases. For the difference sorter, some of the advantages of the difference sorter, and you've all had them, they're those devil's advocates, right? They're those critics that you have in your life. They're those that always see that one little thing that's different or unique, and they're able to create things from that. So these are sometimes the best true entrepreneurs. Not necessarily the best franchisees, but they are endlessly creative because they can see something slightly different, slightly unique, slightly one-off than what you and I might be able to see. Now, of course, if you have someone who's a different sorter, they can also be a little frustrating. So you say, Mr. Jones, the sky is blue. And Mr. Jones is a difference sorter. He's a mismatcher. And he'll say to you, John, it's not blue. It's more kind of pale blue with little whisks of, clouds. And in fact, at times, it's flat out not blue at all. It's more kind of gray. And so it's always different, right? It's always kind of one up, one different, one aside. So the different sorter is someone that notices that, but oftentimes they're the first ones to ruin a promising idea. So you'll show them a business and they're sorting by differences, and they'll point out not only the problems, but why this situation is different and won't work. Now, in some cases, that can be good if you can channel it, because they might find another way to market or deliver or service with that franchise system, if that franchise system allows that level of autonomy and flexibility. But other times, they can take what looks like a perfectly good idea and just kind of smush it. And we've all had those types of people in our lives, haven't we? One of the other challenges with the different sorters is they're oftentimes blinded to popular opinion. Now, again, this could be good if you're a franchise broker or you're a franchisor with a very unique and different idea. Instead of everybody going down, whatever the track is, let's call it retail food or something similar, and you have a one-off concept, now they're going to be interested because it's upstream, it's different, it's unique. But sometimes the difference sorter is simply going upstream because he likes being different. So as long as you know that, it's not a problem. You show them how your business is different, or you show them a business that's going upstream. And it's a win-win for both of you. So let's talk about the last filter. And please be putting your questions into the text chat so Aubrey can help us field those when the time comes. The last one is, I'm sorry, let me give you a little more information on the sameness and difference. I got a little ahead of myself there. So if someone is a sameness sorter, we want to keep in mind they do not like change. So we're going to use words such as like, alike, same as, similar, identical, equal, and we're going to make sure we're demonstrating that on a regular basis. If they are difference-oriented, filtering that way, we know they love change. You may be security conscious, you may have been doing the same thing for 35 years, and boom, you got a different individual. They need change. So we want to make sure we're showing them businesses where they're not going to be bored, right? But also where that franchisor is staying on top of things. Every year or two coming out with another product or service, or going to a new niche, or doing something unique and different. So they need that level of change. So we're going to point that out when we're showing that franchise system. Mr. Difference, look at this, look what they're doing. We're also going to show them where they're better, more, faster, but definitely in a way it's a one-off and slightly unique. Now, some folks will be sameness with difference later. So they'll say, that was 3 chairs, but one was going a different direction. So that's a sameness with difference. So these are folks that have a more gradual ability to change. In fact, it's more evolutionary. So every 5 to 7 years, they're going to want something completely unique and completely different. We see this in the real estate world where people buy houses about every 5 to 7 years. A lovely house, no reason to leave, but we want something different. So this is usually a sameness with a difference backing it up. So we start by showing them how what we're showing them as a business opportunity is similar to what they have. It's safe. It allows them to use their core competencies. It has steady growth. It allows them to work in teams. Whatever it is that they need to have the same, we're going to show them that. And then we're going to show them how it's, and it also does this, and it's slightly different in this way. So we're going to show them that. And if we have 2 or 3 concepts that are, from your eyes, look the same, we're going to position them where we can show them, here's these 3 concepts. Let's say it's a wine and art concept. Here's 3 of them. Here's how this one is, and this one is, and this one is. They're all the same in these following ways, but this one is a little different in this way. This one works primarily with women. This one, it's primarily parties. This one, it's families. Whatever it is, we're going to show them a slight difference. Same way with difference than sameness. We're going to first start with the idea that these folks love variety. They love change. They're happy when things are evolving. So again, we're going to show them franchise concepts. If we are the franchise development guy, we're going to show them how as a franchise system we have evolved, we've changed, and we will continue to have our finger on the pulse, and we will continue to make a difference in that marketplace with our concept. These are folks that are going to need change every 3 to 4 years. So we're going to want to show them that things are revolutionary and evolutionary. And first we're going to start with, this is how we are different, and at the same time, here's how we are the same. So the final filter is what we call the decision-making filter. And so when you think of this one, we're asking ourselves, how do we buy things? How do we determine something is the right pair of shoes, the right car, the right this, or the right that? So one of the questions, if you're not using the SpotOn profile, you can ask is, when you shop for something, what do you look at? Do you look at like a lot of the same items when you try on like 15 pair of shoes before you buy one? And then what's the process that you go through, you know, and hopefully they start to give you a little bit of criteria, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So in this case, we have an individual whose decision-making strategy is procedural. So a procedural individual is someone who likes no more than 1 or 2, maybe 3 choices. So if you're an optional, a guy or gal that loves a lot of choices, a lot of options, and you're working with a procedural, and you're a broker, let's use for an example, and you show them 12 concepts, you are going to overwhelm the procedural. I'll give you a story. It's a personal story. I have a heavy foot. I drive fast. And I have a tendency to buy cars with big motors. In fact, I was a collector of cars for many years, those muscle cars from the 60s and 70s. I had several of them in a garage that housed them all. And I got a lot of tickets, a lot of tickets. In fact, I got 3 tickets in 18 months, speeding tickets. And my insurance went crazy out the rough, as you can imagine. So I called a friend of mine who was a car dealer, and I said, I need a car that goes slow. That was my criteria. I need a car that goes slow. No other criteria. I just need a car that goes slow. And so he knows I'm a procedural buyer. He says, Rebecca, I'm going to bring you a car on Friday afternoon. Keep it over the weekend, bring it back on Monday. Drive your own car the rest of the week, and then the next Friday I'm going to bring you another car, drive that one, and on the following Monday you're going to make a decision. 2 choices. So he brings me the first car. I drive it over the weekend. It's this sporty, low to the ground, fast, small. I loved it. The minute I saw it, I fell in love. I got in that car, I zipped around. I wasn't in the car more than a few minutes, and I call my friend and I say, Joe, don't bring me the second car. This is the car I want. He said, we had a deal. You're going to do this car this weekend. You're going to drive your own car for the following week, and then the following weekend, I'm going to give you a second car. And you're not going to make your decision until that following Monday. We had a deal. So you drive this car the rest of the week. And I drove it fast, and I went through the back countries, and I was having so much fun. Drove my own car. You know, it seemed kind of boring compared to the other one. Brought me the second car, which was a boxy, boring Mercedes C230. I don't like the looks of it. I don't like anything about it other than I feel like a middle-aged woman. And middle-aged women don't speed, or at least that's my filter. And sure enough, I drove that car, and I drove normal. For the first time in my life, I'm not speeding. So that's a procedural buying strategy. So sure enough, on Monday, which car did I choose? I chose the one that met my one and only criteria, which was I will not speed in this car. And so a procedural will have a criteria. A procedural will have a process. A procedural will do whatever needs to be done to follow that particular process. So they're asking which one is best, which one works best for me right now. Where the optional likes many options, and they need to see and hear and touch and feel many different options, and they tend to be slow to decisions. So these are folks that don't mind breaking the rules. They're always asking, is there a better one? Guys, gals, you've dated folks like this, right? So a guy has a girlfriend, she's blonde, she's leggy, she's smart, oh, she's just wonderful. But he's an optional decision maker, right? That's his filter. So he's going, yeah, she's pretty good, but is there a better one? What about that redhead? What about that brunette? What about so-and-so? So the optional just needs a lot of choices, a lot of options, and will need to look at a lot of different businesses and a lot of different ways that they can run those businesses. So obviously the advantages of an optional sorter is they like to explore many options. If you're a broker, they're going to look at just about everything you throw at them. They're going to be open-minded and willing to look at those particular options. However, an optional, because they're looking at so many things, will oftentimes procrastinate and avoid making decisions. And this oftentimes happens because they don't have a criteria that they're operating from. So this business over here gives me autonomy and flexibility, and I can do a lot of creative things. And this business over here has a strong brand recognition and systems in place, and it's a plug and play, and that sounds really cool too. And this business over here, I can get my best friend involved, and it can be hands off, and I can get somebody else to manage it, and that's kind of cool. And the criteria changes from system to system to option that you give them. And it's hard for them to make a decision. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can kind of get around that problem. The procedural, of course, is very efficient in the way that they make decisions. They have a precise process, they have a checklist, they have notes, they have criteria, and it's your job as a franchise development guy or a franchise broker to know what that process is, to know what that checklist is, because boom, the minute that checklist, that criteria is met, the decision is made. Nothing further needs to be said. But if we are not meeting their checklist, then the decision becomes more difficult. So the procedural, some of the disadvantages, of course, is because they have process and they have criteria. If we don't address that criteria, they can get kind of obstinate. They can become bureaucratic and almost self-righteous about how they do things. And they may even block the process. Well, I can't make that decision until I have these other 3 things on my list marked off, or until I do these following things. And you as a franchise developer person or a broker will go, well, those things are pretty ridiculous. You got all your answers. Let's move forward. So a couple of trade secrets. If you're working with an optional, give them a compare, contrast process. This will help them make a decision. Otherwise, you show them 3 options And those are all kind of cool, but what else do you have? Is there a better one? Is there a better one? Is there a better one? So whose relationship filter really matters? It's theirs, right? We want to work with path of least resistance. We want to go the direction that they are going. So we talked about this in another webinar called Putting It All Together, but I wanted to bring it up again. This works whether someone is an optional or someone is a procedural. Give them a spreadsheet. If you're using the SpotOn tool, which of course I want everybody to use, but you can do this even if you're not. Give them a company A, company B, company C listing, and then list their needs and wants. These come directly from the SpotOn tool. Show them, Mr. Prospect, you're looking for a business that exploits your emulator values. It's a stage 2 or stage 3 franchise system. It's a franchise system that allows you to compete. You're looking for a business with few employees, regular hours, legacy income, business to business, but you're just making this list. Now let's look at company A, let's look at company B, let's look at company C, and see which most matches up. So if you can give them this kind of a checklist, even if it's in a yes or no kind of way, as you see here, that's going to be beneficial to the optional. It's also beneficial to the procedural. Now, to you, this may be paperwork and laborious and all of those things, but trust me, especially for the optional, you'll get them to make a decision faster. Otherwise, you're 9 months down the road and you're still talking to that prospect and they are no further to making a decision, and instead are asking, what else do you have? Or if I choose to do this business, could I do it this way also? And franchise development guys, you've had people like that you've talked to. So a couple of questions you could ask them. How will you know when you have found the right business? Listen carefully and take notes. Ask them to describe what's most important to them when choosing a business. Write it down. Put it in that checklist. Well, I don't particularly like managing people. Okay, so you don't want any employees or you want few employees. I really want to be home at night. Okay, so we want some regular hours and probably no weekends. So you begin to write those things down, and this will help them in their decision making. So again, we don't want this tug of war between you and your client. So as you know these meta programs, it'll make your communication and process so much easier for you down the road. So you want to do more deals? Learn these meta programs, and of course now you have a cheat sheet. It's right in your assessment results. It'll tell you exactly who this individual is, and hopefully this webinar has helped you get a better idea what all that means and how you can begin to leverage those meta programs. So Aubrey, if you don't mind, let's open up to any questions that might be out there about the meta programs or things in general.